you guys have called out two different groups here, one that are most active companies and one which is the largest price gains. Could you comment on, what's on your list of most active power companies? And again, I think we're not surprised with maybe those top three or four, but maybe the rest of those.
Yeah, just to flag, yeah, Prometheus, Adam already mentioned, but a couple of these companies, Crusoe, Cognition, new in terms of this level of activity this quarter versus prior quarters.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised with the first four on that list, and maybe Databricks and Shield have been there as well. But Prometheus certainly new, and maybe Neuralink, Crusoe, Cognition, maybe not new, but at least still, maybe more active than one would expect.
It felt like a bit of relative value play in the second quarter, where a lot of the foundational models, I mean, they're quite. I mean, Anthropic, they raised around almost 1 trillion, but the market was trading it higher, like a 30%
Yeah, a
or so,
lot higher.
30 to more premium, and so we did see more demand come into the kind of like you call them not small cap, but still growth, medium size market cap names like Cognition and Replit. So there was a bit of rotation into those names, and even OpenAI towards the end of the quarter and now into this quarter, it's we've seen a lot of demand in OpenAI.
That's interesting, right? Like, I think there's, a lot of not great news for
Yeah.
OpenAI over the last 3, 6 months, but has that calmed down a little bit? Or are we just used to like the, crazy news coming out of all those companies?
Well, look, there's a bit of hype in obviously in this AI cycle, and we see it in the marketplace. Anthropic, there was a bit of cool down in Anthropic. I mean, I think there's still it's I mean, there's still obviously a healthy demand, but there was a little bit of rotation back into OpenAI. I mean, I've seen probably I don't know, probably 100 billion sorry, a billion in demand just in the last couple of weeks. So in OpenAI.
Just on Anthropic for a second, I guess, maybe we're past the, fable mythos sort of brouhaha with the US government. Maybe we're not. But I think there's a ceasefire that's happening there. Maybe not in the streets of Hormuz, but at least with the US government in terms of, shots on Anthropic. But I haven't heard any new revenue updates from Anthropic recently. And they were sort of punching out those revenue updates pretty quick when things were rising fast. So do you think that slowed down a little bit?
No, I don't think it's slowed down. I mean, I don't want to go on the record necessarily. Maybe Adam can, but for June, I've heard, yeah, like a serious number that would not indicate any slowdown at all.
I mean, it seems like the market's expecting 100 billion by year end on Anthropic ARR. That's kind of like the sentiment.
Yeah, I've certainly heard that that's a number that seems within reach, and I've heard people talking about at least a $2 trillion valuation, if not a $3 trillion valuation for the
Yeah, that's
IPO.
right.
Have you guys heard things like that as well?
Yeah.
So it sounds like might be even October. I was just looking at some reports that indicated that seemed to be when they were zeroing in on a date.
To add to what Adam was saying, in terms of the rotation, it's interesting that with Cursor leaving the list, we had Cognition and Replit go in. I mean, I think it's interesting to
Yeah.
me that there's more than two horses, so to speak, in coding agents. You have Cognition,
Yeah.
you have Replit, you have Lovable, which is not on the list, but very relevant. It's not one of those markets that's totally consolidated yet. The companies are chasing kind of different segments, doing slightly different things. But you could say we still have like four coding agents, in market growing very quickly right now. We have Reflection AI on our honorable mention sort of page. That could have a huge impact on the market if and when Reflection AI, like as the anointed US source champion, finally ships a model.
Well, Meta and Thinking Machines also, I believe, released their open source models.
Yeah, and I think even Decagon's founder said the other day, Decagon, AI customer service software, they said that they're running already, right, running like 80%, 90% of their workloads through open source. They're still increasing their spend on like the frontier lab stuff. But as you see more and more companies going towards that efficiency frontier, and there are models that are, not out of China that folks can, turn to as sovereign AI and feel more secure about, or whatever concerns they have, I think that could have a huge impact on the market and possibly on OpenAI and Anthropic too. Although, yeah, I think people will continue to spend on those more expensive, like premium tokens as well.
it seems like there's more attention to the cost of tokens and AI spend, and I just wonder if that's putting pressure on the margins for Anthropic and OpenAI. And I don't know if that slows down their growth overall, but I wonder if it slows down their growth of revenue or at least profitability.
Well, I think one thing I will say about that is that we did a study about the gap in token price between OpenAI and Anthropic. And that gap was very, very wide at one point, and it shrunk, right? The delta is much narrower now. And I think that speaks more to Anthropic having to, not being able to hold on to their premium over OpenAI as much
Yeah.
as they were able to in the past, because of what.
Or even the rest of the market, too, not just their
Sure.
margin difference over
Yeah.
OpenAI. I think there's probably, one set of evaluation criteria for high performance, complex tasks, potentially that have, security risks or concerns. But there's a whole other set of tasks which maybe don't have security concerns and don't need, the highest level of complexity, and feels like a race to the bottom on pricing for those types of tasks and services. I don't know if you saw the post by Brian Armstrong at Coinbase maybe a few weeks ago, where he was talking about their use of tokens were continuing to scale, but their cost of spend was being cut in half. So, something people are tracking at least, maybe as a result of seeing their Anthropic bills go through the roof.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like a margin tailwind too for companies like Replit, that are essentially, reselling tokens, right? Because they can acquire cheaper tokens, sell it at whatever price they're selling at. And that's actually, that's actually a tailwind for them as a sort of middleman.
Anthropic, OpenAI, probably are still the leaders, at least in perception, if not reality. I just still wonder whether all this other competition happening, whether it's Chinese open source models, US open source models, or just other players, maybe it puts more pressure and forces them to play a little bit more pricing game. You had another set of companies here that are the largest risers in price gains. And again, I think we had talked about Neuralink being pretty crazy bump up on that list. Any others here that are surprises that we would pay attention to?
Well, we've had an eye on Saronic for a while. I think that one's starting to move.
Yeah.
Now, they just did a financing round, and even in the secondary market, we're seeing premiums to that round valuation.
All of these companies, Anduril, Saronic, Shield, Havoc, etc., kind of in this new category of fast-moving defense tech, pretty capital intensive. And it feels like all of those companies are getting a lot more attention. And I'm guessing developments in both the Ukraine war, the Iran war, a lot of attention on drone development of all kinds. Probably really upending, how we think about defense tech in the past.
But what you said earlier is true as well, though. These aren't software companies. There's huge amounts of
Capital intensive.
Yeah, very capital intensive, huge amounts of friction in going from like prototype to scaling production. All kinds of idiosyncratic things can happen. I think Shield is a good example where, obviously it's still super relevant company, but they missed their revenue targets for 2025. They had a CEO changeover. They had a safety incident. Now they're guiding to 70% revenue growth, all the way through 2008, saying they can get to 1 billion. But yeah, they missed revenue targets 2 years in a row because of these kinds of idiosyncratic things that happen. And when you get those government contracts, that's not like money that just pours in like SaaS, right? It's like you have to hit certain milestones, and if you don't hit them, the money doesn't come and it can get slowed down. So just kind of a different business that, maybe a lot of us aren't as familiar with in terms of the business model as some of the software stuff.
Are there other categories of companies on the overall list that are interesting? And, I think you also have some companies to watch that you're sort of saying might join the top 20 in the near future. Like it feels like there's a group of, AI related software companies that are definitely, got a lot of attention. There's a group of defense tech, space tech, hardware companies that get a lot of attention. Anything else that we're sort of overlooking there? Maybe prediction markets?
Yeah, prediction markets. I think robotics, that theme is not going away.
Robotics, right.
And two of the names of the companies to watch, Apptronic and Skilled. Skilled being a software play, and Apptronic hardware. I think people are still trying to figure out who's going to win in robotics. And obviously that capital intensive and hard. And I think people are spreading their bets on that one. There's not a clear winner right now.
I think it's interesting, Adam, that the companies that made it on the list, they kind of pull at that whole, yeah, like hardware versus software approach, like where's a good place to put the bet right now. And then there's the whole humanoid versus non-humanoid question, like legs or no
Right.
legs. I think that's being debated a lot right now too.